Welcome to another video for biology. This video I'm going to be highlighting the most important energy transferring molecule in photosynthesis. That's ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So before I get into the function and how adenosine triphosphate works, I want to first touch on the basics of what it's made out of. And it's made out of three main components. The first, which is shown in green, is adenine. This is a nitrogenous base, basically a molecule that's made out of nitrogen. It's made out of a few other atoms, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. Adenine, it's the same adenine, the same nitrogenous base that you find in DNA, and you also have ribose, a sugar, which is in blue. And then probably the most important aspect of this, and the time we'll spend the rest of this video on, is our phosphate groups. Okay, and we have three, and those are symbolized by the pink triangles with a P in front of it. Okay, so we're going to zero in on that phosphate group and talk a little bit about what this phosphate group is made out of. And I think when you understand how it's structured, it'll help you understand how it works as well. So if I look at the periodic table, there's two main elements for the phosphate group, and that's phosphorus, element 15, and element 8, oxygen. Okay, I have that highlighted there in red. So our phosphate group, okay, it's made out of, like I said before, phosphorus and oxygen. So you have phosphorus surrounded by 4 oxygens, and that top oxygen there has a double bond. And in addition to that, this phosphate group has a negative charge. Okay, I have it in brackets showing that it's the molecule as a whole that's got a negative charge. Okay, so if you go into what you know about chemistry, anything that has if you have two elements that have the same charge, like a negative charge, they tend to repel each other. They don't like to hang out together. So when you group two phosphate groups, both of which have a negative charge together, it creates a bond that's fairly unstable because it requires quite a bit of energy to keep those bonds together. It's kind of like putting two people who don't like each other, forcing them to hug. It requires a lot of energy to get that to work out. So if you can imagine adding a third negative, a negative group to it, you create quite an unstable molecule, quite an unstable charge that doesn't last very long. In the human body, for example, adenosine triphosphate, an ATP molecule, once it's formed through cellular respiration, it only lasts about 60 seconds before it gets used up in some process in the body. And that third phosphate group breaks off. Okay, and then that ADP molecule will then go ahead and reform another ATP and then breaks up again. So this cycle just continues to happen all day, every day, pretty much. Well, that for the human body, it happens all day, every day. In fact, something very interesting for the body, and we'll explore this later on with cellular respiration. But your body continuously makes ATP, and ATP and ADP gets recycled in the body. And on any given day, you make about 90 pounds, or you go through about 90 pounds of ATP molecules. That's quite phenomenal if you think about it. If you just live off of the ATP that you have in your body right now and you don't produce any more, you'll last maybe a minute and then you'll die. Okay, so again, we'll explore that later on. But in the plant for ATP, that's the process that we're going to be discussing right now in this video. So we have our phosphate group. Okay, so just to kind of get a quick little overview of the energy transfer. Okay, remember the law of thermodynamics. Okay, so the energy transfer from the sun, a photon, transfers over to an ATP molecule in photosynthesis. Okay, this is the light-dependent reaction in photosystem 2 and 1. Check out that video to see that process. And then ATP goes then into your Calvin cycle, the light independent reaction, and it makes glucose, which then an animal will consume that plant and derive that energy from the glucose. So starting off with adenosine diphosphate, okay, diphosphate meaning two phosphate groups, and our third has not bonded yet, so there's no bond yet. This is a fairly stable molecule, right? So then when you absorb energy, like sunlight, right, from a photon, then you have enough energy to bond that third phosphate group. And again, that's an unstable molecule. It doesn't last very long. Okay, so then that energy will be released then in the Calvin cycle. Okay, and then creating now a diphosphate group again. Okay, so let's explore that example that I just mentioned in the Calvin cycle, where ATP on the top right-hand corner there, you see. Okay, I have 6 ATP molecules. Okay, and again, I have my short-lived intermediate molecule there. Okay, ATP will come in. It absorbs the energy, transfers from the ATP molecule into our carbon molecule, and then it breaks it apart. Okay, it breaks it apart and makes 3-phosphoglycerate and an ADP molecule. So notice again, okay, from ATP, it loses its energy, and then it turns into ADP. Okay, so energy transfer, again, our main energy transfer molecule in photosynthesis. So from ADP, diphosphate, to our triphosphate. Okay, so again in that overview, our photon, again, the law of thermodynamics. Okay, we do not create nor destroy energy, we merely transfer it from one thing to another. So we transfer energy from the photon, the sun, into ATP, and then ATP molecule goes into Calvin cycle and transfers that energy into our glucose, and then the glucose molecule is then consumed by the animal, and then the energy transfers over to the animal, and the animal does its work. Okay, that does it for adenosine triphosphate video. Hope this helps. Good luck in your studying.